Very strong God, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. We'll begin in the Yellow Prayer Book, opening prayers on page 1. All mother sentient beings, limitless as space, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be free from suffering, and swiftly may they attain precious, unsurpassed, perfectly complete enlightenment. All mother sentient beings, limitless as space, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be free from suffering, and swiftly may they attain precious, unsurpassed, perfectly complete enlightenment. All mother sentient beings, limitless as space, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be free from suffering, and swiftly may they attain precious, unsurpassed, perfectly complete enlightenment. For that purpose, until I attain Buddhahood, I will apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue. Until death, I will apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue. From today until this time tomorrow, I will apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue. I take refuge in the Buddhas until I attain the essence of awakening. Likewise, I take refuge in the Dharma and in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. Just as the Buddhas of the past gave rise to bodhicitta and progressed along the Bodhisattva's path, so shall I give rise to bodhicitta for the benefit of all beings and practice the stages of the Bodhisattva's path. I take refuge in the Buddhas until I attain the essence of awakening. Likewise, I take refuge in the Dharma and in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. Just as the Buddhas of the past gave rise to bodhicitta and progressed along the Bodhisattva's path, so shall I give rise to bodhicitta for the benefit of all beings and practice the stages of the Bodhisattva's path. I take refuge in the Buddhas until I attain the essence of awakening. Likewise, I take refuge in the Dharma and in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. Just as the Buddhas of the past gave rise to bodhicitta and progressed along the Bodhisattva's path, so shall I give rise to bodhicitta for the benefit of all beings and practice the stages of the Bodhisattva's path. Until awakening, I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings. Until awakening, I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings. Until awakening, I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings. May all mother sentient beings, limitless as space, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they not be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, limitless as space, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they not be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, limitless as space, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they not be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. An infinite array of worlds, each with 4 continents and the wealth of infinite oceans of realms, if I bring them all to mind and offer them without exception, please hold with compassion all the beings they contain. My body, enjoyments, and whatever I own, my aggregates, elements, and sense sources, my aspirations now and in times to come, as well as everything I grasp as mine, by offering them all, may I be blessed with the end of self-grasping. Completely liberated from the bounds of real and unreal, transcending the names and concepts of arising, cessation, and abiding, coming and going, affirmation, and denial. The supreme mandala is the natural state. By offering it, may I be blessed to attain the state of Buddhahood. Om Guru Devada Kini Ratna Mandala Prakticha Svoha. Namo. To the Guru, the utter purity of all appearance and existence, I offer all appearance and existence arisen as the primordial ground. I supplicate you. May the 3 realms be completely liberated. Please grant blessings to empty samsara from its depths. Lord with 5 omniscient wisdoms, crown ornament, kind one with loving nature, precious protector of beings, heart of all Buddhas, inexpressible by words or thought, I supplicate you from the core of my mind. Bless me from within the state of Dharmata. Bless me to realize this mind, primordially pure and unborn as the unfathomable Dharmakaya. Please turn the wheel of the Dharma of the greater and lesser vehicles and the teachings common to both, according to the dispositions and mental capacities of sentient beings.
다 남자 고로는 다 마다 버트거리 다 좋아를 참아 다 제가 좀지 기칙서 삼을하서 인성 다 좋아를 유모 소수랑 속했다는 좋아를 무슨 차대요래 들이 대세 내가 좀 거래 너한테 다 마다 네가 쭉 공소요래 저거라 다 마다 니요래 배는 다만 나와더라 인상이고 말이 롱주도 그래 마다 바테 다 사사다 다지 제발요 다지 인지요래 무엇도 재미있게 이 빼가면 다 잡지는 잘롱다고 차요래 롱고 담지 죽어도 롱고 담지 잡도 못하고 나같이 못하고 차대 이때는 여러분은 저기 몇 번 고성만 답에 맞서는 데죠 달라들이 산지 대라들이 근데 이거 참대요래 산지 세지 가까이 온 말이 되리 이 뭐가 그 삼지 산지 삼지적도 와 강에 들이 다 라마레지 산지 삼지디 보고 라마레지 어떻게 되죠 사람에게 고성마다 빼마 차원의 라마리 사람들 미제 대동성도 좋소 사람들 몇 바지 다사다 천마영마 고미 추고 고미를 랩차나 다 사람들 미제 대동성도 좋지 오 사람들 미제 대동도 가리 천명왕은 나도 좀 직장이나 근데 게임이 나와서지 좀 맞아 샷차래 이제 하점 대화 치모더니 본전 몇번 대화 치모지 실제 하지 보여요 제라더니 대본 거고 가리게 대화리들 세면 남도는 진짜면 나지 니지 매봐 대사하면 되게 대화 치모지 니지 오늘은 대화 용었던 게 대화를 뜨면 게 그때 공다 대도면 사람에게 대동성도 대동성도 됐어요. 이 남당 랑살 망가 더 많아야지. 다들 랑가 당 랑살 될 랑가 나와들. 그 고대이 다마다 니와들이 다 망고차를 고대이가 살고 다들 시작이오래. 오, 고가 자체 땡삽 야 답하시 가다시가 대리 잡채 단점은 여기 딱 보시면 거다시간 자체가 다 때려서 거요래. 다 니네 상하 깨도 봐. 사지 것은 것도 봐. 너도 참지 라마로 참지. 라마 가리지. 랑셈로 참. 랑셈 가리. 뭐또 뭐 죽어. 나왔다 그래. 참지. 랑고처럼 랑고살을 배워서 랑고살을 다 와는 잡서 줘. 싸워 생동바도 싸워 하고 때리 롱고 주고요래. 이 뒤가니 마다가 생기 답지랑지 뭐 밤에 이게 좀 때리 쪼그랑 이게 정어요래. 니 제사대 능해지는 정어요래. 마다가 생기도 옆에 능해요래. 다랑시 잡혀요래 배는. 라는들이 세를 롱도 벗음 쳐봐 요는 남도 언제 돌아서 다랑시 잡혀요래. 바지 세요래 대다를 때. 세분 남도 언제 난 쪽으로 송을 마다 바라 대다를 그래대라. 또 접시에 쫓아가고 사죠. 나가서 또 쫓아가고 사죠데. 산지에 껐는데 리삼로다나. 라고 셈내로 똑바 대리들이 대라 매배 죽고 또에 죽고 그래. 가래줄 재고 생콘을 하지 저대 요래지. 똑같이 무슨 가래 타고도 생콘을 전에 타고래지. 나왔다 그래지. 타지를 타가. 저들은 띵하는 콘테 나와서 그러지. 니마타가 저기도 셔다 자송제도 해서 대타고 하고 랑 나와라. 그때 나와 담지 랑가 셈들라니 소리는 너도 격성살이 그래서 아무것도 혼대치들한 거 셈이 딱딱딱 하고 그래. 대고는 내가 만보 열면 나와 내속 토바 가래 샤를 말람 따바도 받다 그래. 대다 하고 따다디와 좀 뭐래스. 저도 세서도 사죠.
So we come back to the sadhana, the Tsewang Dzinpa sadhana, and we are now on page 12, starting with the ultimate praise. And so it is a praise of the three kayas, and we have said before, everything has the nature of the three kayas. So this praise is expressing the qualities of praising, expressing the qualities of those three kayas, and everything naturally has that nature. So first it says, Hum, changeless Dharmakaya, without arising and cessation. So the Dharmakaya is like space. And Milarepa had said, when you understand, once you have seen the mind that is without dualistic thinking, then you have seen the Dharmakaya. It is this empty, space-like nature of the mind. And then secondly, the blissful Sambhogakaya without meeting and parting. So then the Sambhogakaya is the natural expression of that mind, an expression of bodhicitta, the natural manifestation of bodhicitta. So just naturally, when bodhicitta is present, the pure forms and the pure lands will manifest, and everything that appears and exists becomes an infinite field of purity. So it is without meeting and parting. One never separates from it. It is ever present because it is the natural expression of one's own mind. So therefore, one never separates from it. There is no parting. And when the mind is pure, then pure perceptions manifest from it. And when the mind is ignorant, there is self-grasping and the afflictive emotions, then the 6 realms of samsara will continuously manifest. It is all a projection of one's own mind. So therefore, there is no meeting and no parting. So the Nirmanakaya, the Sambhogakaya is the natural reflection of one's own mind. And so basically for as long and until one attains enlightenment, for as long as one has a mind of self-grasping and afflictive emotions, one will not separate, apart from the 6 realms of samsara. And then when one attains enlightenment, then one will not part from the appearances of the Pure Lands, which appear naturally just like the sun rays shining from the sun. And then it says, self-born Nirmanakaya, self-arisen and free from grasping. So in brief, from Buddha nature, naturally, the rainbow-like manifestations of the 5 kinds of wisdom manifest. It is just like from a crystal or a mirror, for example, like a crystal ball, and the sun shines on it, then 5 colored lights, rainbow lights emerge from it. And so similarly, the 5 wisdoms naturally emerge from Buddha nature. And regarding the Nirmanakaya, all the outer elements actually all are Nirmanakaya. And actually through the example of a crystal, we can understand the nature of the Nirmanakaya as well. And also the Sambhogakaya, the appearances that appear, manifest from Buddha nature. And so the natural appearance, now regarding the Nirmanakaya, the natural appearance of bodhicitta, the self-light of bodhicitta, are the various manifestations of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who appear to benefit beings. They are those who have become liberated from suffering themselves and are able to show liberation to others. So the difference is having or not having realized that everything that appears is one's own self-projection. But it is said that everything that is done in the field of knowable things or in this world is done by Buddha. So there is just a single ground. There is no duality, and samsara and nirvana do not inherently exist. And regarding the Nirmanakaya that appears, it either appears in a pure or in an impure way, depending on whether or not one has realized this non-dual state. And those who have not realized the view or non-duality will develop the 6 afflictive emotions, and then they temporarily become like Nirmanakayas, which means emanations. They become emanations of the 6 realms of samsara, emanations of the 6 afflictions. And the pure Nirmanakayas are the emanations of in the various Pure Lands throughout the 10 directions, the natural manifestations of bodhicitta. So this term emanation itself in the Nirmanakaya, emanation actually already implies that it is like something that like shines forth. It is your own self-light, which also implies that it is not separate from yourself. So it is ultimately non-dual, and everything that appears is just your own projection. And so those who engage in practice, so where we really draw the line between pure and impure. Now, when you engage in practice, you cultivate bodhicitta and you cultivate the 4 immeasurables, then when you're full of love, then everything will appear that way from this mind of love and compassion. It is said that love is the power that is all pervasive. For example, it is that thought in your mind that may everyone in the world be happy. So that becomes projected, that arises in your mind. And that is then what leads to the arising of the pure Nirmanakaya. And then on the impure level, for example, if somebody insults you and then you get angry at them and you think that, oh, he did that to me or he said that to me, then you become an impure Nirmanakaya. And that is the nature of all beings in the 6 realms. They're impure Nirmanakayas. So then when this karma ripens, it ripens in the form of the 6 realms. It is said that cause and effect is the ripening of the moment-to-moment thoughts. So it is the ripening, the natural projection of the 6 afflictive emotions, which then manifests as the actually appearing samsara. So this is what happens. So there is these 2 kinds of Nirmanakaya. There's pure and the impure. And for the pure manifestations, the pure emanation forms, and also the Sambhogakaya, recognize that all appearances are their self-projections, and on the impure level, we perceive a separation, a duality of self and other. And we are bound, tied up by our belief in a concrete reality and the concept structures in our mind. So we have become like ice blocks in an ocean. And the Dharmakaya and Sambhogakaya are like the vast ocean or like the vast sky. And then it says, Lotus holding power over life, you are the Lord of the 3 kayas. So this, everything in samsara and nirvana has the nature of the 3 kayas. So that is the nature of the guru, the lotus holding power over life. So that here is the Svabhavika Kaya, or the essence Kaya, and the essence Kaya, the Svabhavika Kaya, is the guru. And the guru is the embodiment of all the Buddhas. And then it says, luminosity is unobscured, and bliss, emptiness, is an intrinsic union. So when so bliss, emptiness being an inseparable union, is that when you come to the state of non-meditation in your practice, you realize this union of bliss, emptiness. And so how does that come about, this union of bliss and emptiness, or this experience? It is when all dualistic thinking stops. There is no dualistic thought within your mind at all. All these samsaric and nirvanic thoughts of virtue and non-virtue and so forth have at this point already become like illusions. And in such a state, the mind experiences great bliss, and that bliss is unchanging. So the mind is very happy, very joyful in that state of bliss and emptiness. And because what is the real nature of that bliss that you experience? The bliss comes from the lack of thinking, the lack of dualistic grasping at self and other. Once there is a dualistic perception, then the bliss that is generated through such thinking leads to suffering, ends up in suffering. So non-duality is this state of bliss and emptiness, is this union of bliss and emptiness. And then self-illuminating and unceasing, your natural radiance appears in myriads of ways. So the natural radiance appearing in myriads of ways is what we mentioned, that everything that appears in samsara and nirvana, pure and impure, is all the projection of your own mind. And due to it being your own mind, many various perceptions manifest. And these we refer to as the appearances of samsara and nirvana. And samsara is extremely deep and vast. But the Pure Lands are even deeper, even more vast, even hundreds and thousands of times more vast than samsara even is. So this praise here is like a general praise of the secret mantra, and specifically it is a praise to the three kayas. And so within that, the point is to recognize that all that appears is the projection of one's own mind. So the mind, to begin with, in essence, is empty like space. And then the Sambhogakaya is naturally clear and appears in the form of like a rainbow in the sky, the rainbow like Sambhogakaya. And these are one's self-projections. So everything that is perceived is the projection of the Sambhogakaya. And so then when one remains within such a state and then sees that there are limitless sentient beings who have not realized that, one sees that because they have not realized that, they all experience great suffering. And that leads to the natural arising of unobjectified and of compassion that has no reference point. And from this compassion, the Manakaya then naturally manifests. It sees the endless suffering of sentient beings who have not realized that. And beings who have not realized that suffer so much, often they even commit suicide. Some people they possess perfect wealth and have everything they need, and still it is because of the clinging, the fixation in their mind, their thinking, that often they commit suicide or they go killing others. So all of that suffering only arises from thinking. It is all just a projection of one's own mind. And then it says, through your effortless activities, you have put an end to deviations. So when you really understand the nature of the three kayas, everything becomes effortless. And then having realized the nature of the mind, there is no more need to engage in deliberate, effortful action. It happens naturally. And that is the quality of the natural state of the mind. In Dzogchen, it is referred to as the primordial purity. It is the fundamental ground, the basis that is free from the two extremes. And then the second term mentioned in Dzogchen is spontaneous presence. And that is, the spontaneous presence refers to the spontaneous manifestation out of this, that appears out of this state of primordial purity. So the primordial purity being like the basis of all arising, and then the spontaneous presence, all the various appearances of samsara and nirvana manifesting just like sun rays shining from the sun, or like rainbows emerging from a crystal, everything being the self-projection of the crystal. In the 37 Bodhisattva practices, it says, appearances are one's own mind. So this really summarizes it in just one line. And when you really understand it, you will recognize everything in samsara and nirvana is just my own mind, even though it appears in different ways. But everything that appears and all these thoughts of happiness and suffering in samsara and nirvana are just like a dream or like an illusion. And so this realization, that is that state of great bliss.
Nyava sotop chen nga nyava jokosan mechi yongala sanchi chokcha chik dongme jokosan sachi yongala otel sheda yongala ramji ge sotop ma kor chu nyava jogo yore senal yeda yong roar do na de ranang dimje ki chu sam ran zo sanchi tisu ko chik chik de dongte jo tel sang sang na nyu mo ba de ti nyami chen rang nyu mo ba de shekko ndo ga togo no ga chu dewa go no nyu mo ba to ko ri saung ta de she ko yore 디 탐지 나가 유모의 마지막 뒤랑을 다 당지가 나중에 거와 산속 생활하지 나대 거와 나대 요 세미적 바리 제적 남인제의 이송 그것도 뭐만 송고요리 델레티니 다상 못하더니 콘디 대도 자랑나 톡되어 봐 델레티 델상 못하도 자와티 가려도 맞진 전자 주변 탈인데 라그대로 막히바팅하나 내 참나 디드니들이 디동도서나 다 탐지 동도 타고요 그래서 찍찍 건조로서 그래 랑 따하고서 되리 디드는 내 마도나 그거 살로다 파트를 해야지 다 내독을 내와 독고 동네 빵고서 뒤걸로 살로 가랬다면 그분 다 줘야요 말이지 누구의 셔도 살로도는 나는 다 줘야 그러면 탈해야 돼. 맙지들 맙지도 바타가시니 걔네들아 동당고 대바테리 얘를 봐 그러면 손을 다 줘야요 말이지. 누구들 좀 봐주고 이 시절에 짜좀도 노저는 줘도 심지 탐지 대책님 뭐지 누구들 대책님 뭐 내려도 철대 들이 대를 안 잡시나 또 사제를 잡시나 시합을 잡시죠지 납요리 거리 사제가 뭐 시합돼요. 라는 동당고 대식이 뭐지 시합 될 잡시나 다들 눈을 좀 가지고 르타들 도질롱도 도데 다 다마다니가 공시에서 매미는 건 가셔 트버커스 롱도 도데 다마다니가 세우 샤도 다들라 르타를 좀 매미는 건 가셔 트버커스 따뜻하게 가리 따뜻하게 약속 지장이 코데니 나와테나 들이 당기 보는 뭐지 송거리 따뜻도 검자고 되들이 가리들 남도 도바도 됐다고 해서 다 이미들이 다 주고 그랬어 이제 말에 비해서 말에 강수 말에 되나 니모 독tor 무슨 독tor 검배처럼 페이지 저 니모 받은 메시나 나도 검자고 가야지 가페고 말했어 그래서 말에 그다음 샷돌 마돌데 샷돌 쪽까지는 매미는 거 같이 잡고 그런 걸 내도 소박한 샤노지 나도 차우 감니 나도 뭐시 얘는 매일 시장을 다다 파체 치도 시장을 가려가지고 시장나도 상위가 8월들이 뒤질이 뒤토라더니 시장나는데 시장 쪽고 지금 뒤숨도 또 바꿔요 이거 뒤숨도 꼬마서 까는 뒤니 딱그 맨날 좋은 행정을 들으시다는 뜻이에요, 그러나. 나중에 대가 감이 대감이 시합라들이 자 해당제에서 저 해당된 걸 따로 지시. 그래서 뭐라는 봐. 대체 시바랑 소리는 내가 시당에 뭐 시바 잠제 시라도 그 철때문에 시당 시락 그런 거랑 이랑 어떻게 그래 하고서는 요만이 별로 좀이 늘 때문에 이들은 늘 고작들은 판에 샤로지요 말아 대는 이거 유머를 차라가 똑같은 게 차니 몽동아 라바들 나시 초지 아치게 이제 다들 대들이 다 샤워 차라 참아 무슨 오 되게 비밀 놈이 그 나도 차와서 생들은 맞아요 다 박차 조금만 박차 맞아랬더니 매미를 뭐 같이 쭈박거 시와데 오 답발라 쭈박거 저거래 마다도 수박거 누가를 저거래 쩔 맞더란 거랑 타주고 그래 매우는 같이 쭈박 매미를 뭘 같이 쭈박거 말이 쪄도 뭐이나 나 잡게 맞다 보다 우리 남아 저로 삼살도 그랬다 말이 쪄도 막하래 딱 뭐이거 나가 세고 내려 짐바디 따뜻다 sakchi doksin te meng mata te jisi so bo so chebo so ko mal to ko chode ni meng tang chima li yang ni ma sakchi no sakchi to ta de yang cham ma doksin no de ni ya ti de cham de ma je de 세고 내려도 라고 내려도 거 라게 내려고 따와대 네 저기 빠총 뭐지 샘렀다 코레 샘렀다 아송 강성 말에 샘렀다 이놈의 대랑 샘렀다 샘 가리키고 다도 가리키 하고 김가 다지 조금 더 용어디 내도 그 dum레들 하고 그 dum레리 있잖아 그래라 이제 시지도 주고 동해 주고나 아니 뭐 어디 짓을 랑따래서 그러 랑도 요를 하고나 미는 거 그래 좀 가지고 니몽 동안 기에 그게 내도 좋아가래 돌아 뱀이 놈이도 좋아 나도 그 샤지 메지 뺀는 야민 시효나 주 쳐다랍지도 좋고 다 쳐다랍지도 좋고 때쪽거리 남동 아차빼 맞춰보다 쭉 동다 가리지 빼 맞춰보다 남도도 왕 빼 맞춰보다 빼 맞으러 왕도 더하리 뜻하다면서 법하게 사와 백니 밤호 보이더라 남도 왕도 되시 오 따뜻하고 자리는 남도 왕도 되야 남도리 말하기 동도 남도 치워서 도서 대파상어서 냠니 탑랑 사워서 말하면서 얘들이 누구지 말기도 좀 랑다 샤라리 랑샤 빼마타고다 랑을 봐 랑가 하고나 랑을 봐지라 들 답이 맞고 되리지 들 mengi 마고 말이지 빼마타고들 남도 탐지람이 왕도 더서 페미니즘 위도 그렇다 같아요 빼마한테 들 답고들 랑상 타타들 남도 시작해봐 얘들이 딱 추추다 들어서 온 거예요. 동질 라마 졸아서 동질 라마들이 다른 영적이 그런 소리가 민국 때 백에서 예반이 잡지 뜻이 라마야라지 라마소리 다른 니 라마 따라기 시작들이 랑을 빠들이 그 가리에 루파오나 다시 유모 탐지 유모이 실절 등에 되어 두고요. 라그 생부자리 어떻게 돼? 안데 하자 같이 뭔데 상하 탐치는 데 그거래. 그것도 그렇게 말아. 동들아마 졸라 삼사도 동들아마 그래. 오 다른 거 대시 봐요 되래. 강에 자세라니 소리면 놀나 강도 졸람 째시 장세. 랑그 샘데 내가 때라시 저도 진당 시기되면 오 진시 되라 말이야. 세 라마 자우나 라마지 샘데 진시 저 라마 자우 대표는 나고 제시 라마지 샘드하고 라마지 샘드 제시 라마 샘드 거고 그래. 오 말에 바가 마바가 샘커라. 찌글이 집에 냠니스 하고 좋아해. 찌그 샘거대로 찌그 샘커데 샘 참아라 요는 내로 뭐또 담아도 그랬다 말을 제발해. 오 라메 뭐도 다 되니 그래 사제대. 오 달라마다라시 사제서 찌그래 돼. 왠지 계속 못했다서 뒤도 하장 가르쳐 못한 사람이 내가 그 맛이 사람 돌은지 좋아하는데 양한테 저래 그 사람이 좋아하는 걸 팽을 다 동물들은 너도 소리 다시라비 진시 봐요. 여도 진짜 쉽게 돼 봐요. 진시 되달라 말이에요.
So then the next page 13, uncontrived, free from grasping and beyond conceptual elaboration, the wisdom of the Dharmakaya is primordially present. So that is very meaningful, and especially those of you who engage in a meditation practice should think about this meaning of this uncontrived and beyond conceptual elaboration. So kind of naturally, there is no, like, being uncontrived is being natural and effortless. So for example, nobody intentionally creates hell. Nobody intentionally wants to go to hell. There's not a single sentient being who wants to create suffering, who deliberately creates it. But it just happens naturally, so effortlessly in that sense. Naturally, when anger or hatred is present, then hell naturally is created. Nobody creates it. And similarly, when stinginess or greed are present, that naturally creates the hungry spirit realm. So as Jigten Sumgön had said, cause and effect is the natural moment, the ripening of the moment-to-moment thoughts. So when it is present in your mind, then it naturally comes about, and nothing can really come about through contrivance or mental conceptual elaboration. So it is the nature of the afflictive emotions, and so therefore, similarly, it is also for happiness. If we want to experience happiness, then we need to attain freedom of the mind. And for that, first, the afflictive emotions have to disintegrate. Because for as long as they are present, naturally, samsara will manifest. When bodhicitta is present, naturally, nirvana will manifest. In the Samantabhadra Prayer, it says there is a single ground, yet two paths and two fruitions. So it all arises from this one mind, this single ground. Samsara and nirvana, happiness and suffering. The root is one's own mind. And so the mind is uncontrived, free from grasping and beyond conceptual elaboration. So when you meditate and you rest within this uncontrived, which is this unaltered state, the natural state of the mind, and you realize it, you realize your true nature, then from that naturally nirvana manifests, and everything is realized. The nature of all phenomena is realized. It is said that knowing one thing through a single knowledge, everything is liberated. So by only knowing your mind, everything is understood, everything is realized. And the difference is just resting in the natural state and recognizing it or not. So it does not rely on our intention of I want to be happy and I do not want to suffer. So that is this meaning of it is beyond conceptual elaboration. So we cannot determine it just through conceptual elaborations. We have to understand the workings of karma here. And this is what will really determine it, not our conceptual elaboration. And so when you recognize the uncontrived nature of the mind and you abide within it, you have realized the ultimate truth, and everything arises from that naturally. And then next it says, so that's the Dharmakaya, and then the illusory Vajra nature of Rigpa's liveliness is the Sambhogakaya. So primordially your nature is Buddha nature. So look at this nature, and that is your ultimate refuge. That is why in the refuge we say, I take refuge in wisdom, the heart, the perfection of wisdom, which is the heart essence of the Buddha. So the refuge actually is within yourself. It is the essence of wisdom. It is your own Buddha nature. And so from that nature, having taken refuge in that nature, then the Dharmakaya naturally manifests as its liveliness, the natural expression of it. And so from the mind, as we said, pure and impure both manifest. And then it says, and whatever appears before the boundless phase of Rigpa is the Nirmanakaya. So then the Nirmanakaya is, as we mentioned, all the various appearances in samsara and also nirvana. Also, all in samsara is Nirmanakaya. Also, Garchen Rinpoche has said, all of you meditate, but you have not liberated yourselves from thoughts. Then what is the benefit of your meditation? And actually, so it all comes down to the real point is, the purpose is to realize and to rest in the natural state of the mind. Milarepa said something similar. He said that when you meditate and you do not liberate yourself from the unbearable suffering of the afflictive emotions, then what is the point of your meditation? There's no benefit in it. And so now, regarding the Nirmanakaya here, that whatever appears before the boundless phase of Nirmanakaya is that it becomes Nirmanakaya when thoughts that arise are liberated upon arising. So whatever thought arises, whether it is a happy thought or a sad thought, recognize it. For example, if you get angry at a person, so why are you getting angry at that person? Why does anger arise? It arises without you having any control over it. And when it arises, then its quality is that it obliterates all the other thoughts. There's only anger, and all other thoughts pertaining to the 3 times have stopped for that moment. For example, that is so powerful that even if it is a friend that you love very much, if you get very angry at them, knew somebody get angry at their friend, they might even kill their friend. Because in that moment, there is no other thought in the mind. And so when you practice in that moment, when there is no other thought and you have awareness, then you would recognize this anger, that is the real enemy. And this is the one that I must recognize. And then you don't pay attention to what the other person does, but you rest within the natural state. You practice according to how it is explained in the Samantabhadra Prayer, where it says that when anger arises, you should not reject it, but also do not accept it. Just relax in the natural state. So simply recognize the anger that arises and view it with awareness, with clear awareness. And then you see that the rising of anger is actually the natural expression, like a kind of the liveliness arising from your own mind, which is your own awareness. And it is just like, for example, when you watch a movie on a projector that is projected on the wall, and if you turn it off, basically, then there's nothing is going to be projected. There is no movie. And so similarly, when you look at the anger directly, nakedly as it is, and you see that itself is the awareness, then it's gone. Actually, you see that it does not actually exist. It's not even there in the first place. And so you practice this way with all the thoughts that arise, whether they are subtle or coarse. In a more coarse form, they appear as the 5 poisons, the afflictive emotions, and then the more subtle perceptions of the 8 consciousnesses. So all of these mental arisings, when you recognize them in such a way, then they will dissipate without acceptance or rejection, or having caused any benefit or having caused any harm. And then when those thoughts and feelings do not remain within your mind, then also no imprints will be placed into your mind. And so then it says, so whatever appears before the boundless phase is the Manakaya. So this boundless phase, then so the Nirmanakaya, as we said, appears then, everything then appears in a pure way. So you have recognized that everything is your own self-projection and not separate from you. And then the next line says, everything gathered into one is the innate Svabhavika Kaya. So the Svabhavika Kaya is the natural naked state of your mind, the natural state of the mind. And it really cannot be given any name. So we may call it Mahamudra or Dzogchen, but actually Jigten Sumgön had said, the supreme view remains untouched by the three great ones. And so Mahamudra, Dzogchen, and Madhyamaka. It has no name and no characteristics. So for example, if someone says, I'm a Mahamudra practitioner, then they will kind of go or wandering off with that grasping at their own kind of tenet. And then another person might say, I'm a Dzogchen practitioner, and then they wander off with that grasping in their mind. So actually, the natural state of the mind, the view, has no such a name. And also, Samantabhadra Rinpoche had said, just look at your mind and just recognize whatever arises within the mind, whatever thought arises within the mind. So only look at the mind, just look at your mind. And so then when the various thoughts arise of happiness and suffering, good and bad, remember karma and trust in karma. So somebody who possesses clear awareness and who knows karma and then still goes on to create their own suffering, then they will themselves plunge themselves into suffering. So then they will continue, even though they might have some awareness, they will continue to follow the afflictive emotions and accumulate karma. And in this way, it is like you are kind of purchasing your own suffering. You're doing it to yourself. And so therefore, when you recognize in such a way all of the afflictive emotions, the 5 poisons, virtues, and non-virtues that arise in this previously mentioned way, then they will be liberated without having caused any benefit or harm at all. So if you know how to practice, then all these thoughts become liberated like waves on water. And then, as you mentioned before, they become the Nirmanakaya. So everything gathered into one is the Svabhavika Kaya, homage and praise to the ultimate, most precious Guru Bema Dakbotsal. So Bema Dakbotsal is the guru, the lotus guru of like wrathful power, and lotus here, or Bema, has to do with this overpowering, bringing under control. For example, in the Vajrakilaya mantra, it says in the end, the last part, Sarva Bignan Bam Hum Pet, and that actually is, the meaning of that is to bring under control all thoughts, all thinking, to liberate all thoughts that arise. So Milarepa had said again that the greatest demon is your own thinking, and when it is recognized through by sustaining a state of practice, it actually becomes an enhancement to your practice, and therefore apply the skillful means of practice. Hold on to the skillful means of practice. So this homage and praise to the lotus, the lotus guru of wrath, is the guru here is to be should be recognized as your own intrinsic awareness. So the inherent liveliness of my own awareness. Your own awareness is the lotus guru of wrath. And there is no need to find another guru of wrath. It's your own awareness. And it is the awareness that overpowers, brings under control all thoughts arising in your mind and liberating them without them causing any benefit or any harm. So this overpowering is the lotus, and then the Drakpo, which is the wrathful lotus. The wrathful means this direct, this instantaneous liberation, which is also related to the view of Chekchu, the direct cutting through. And that is the ultimate guru, so the inherent liveliness of my own awareness. Also, it is said in the Nyingtik Ngondro, the preliminary practices, there is like an homage to one cultivate devotion and pay homage to the guru, which is the natural kind of radiance of my own heart, my own mind, the actual ultimate guru, which is my own transcendent awareness, my own intrinsic awareness. And so when awareness is recognized, then all afflictive emotions become primordial wisdom, and all suffering becomes happiness, because everything that arises is recognized as the natural expression of Rigpa itself, your own awareness itself. So that's extremely important to understand. And that is actually, this line here can be applied to any of the secret mantra teachings. So this is a praise that speaks about the qualities of the three kayas. And what we need to recognize ultimately, what we need to practice ultimately is mindfulness, conscientiousness, as it is said in the 37 practices in verse number 36. In brief, at all times, you should look at your mind. What is the state of my mind? At all times, sustain a state of mindfulness, and that mindfulness, that is the guru. Even though you might have 100 outer gurus, it is not of no benefit if you do not recognize the mind. So the true guru should be understood as your own mind. It is your mindfulness. That is the true guru. And also this is what Milarepa has accomplished. What he gained, what he brought with him was Marpa's mind. And this is how the practice blessing lineage is transmitted from one mind to another mind. So it is just the mind, that is your true guru, the pure mind. And so even though the mind is pure inherently, the difference just lies in whether or not one has recognized it, one has seen the nature of the mind. And seeing it, one is a Buddha. So your own mind, what this line is saying is that your own mind is the guru, your own mind is the Buddha. Or as Jigten Sumgön had said, my own mind, the guru's mind, the Buddha's mind are one. So that is what you should understand here, and also discuss among each other. So that is an understanding that can be applied and will be beneficial for any ritual or sadhana practice. It is to recognize, the point here is, the essence here is that recognize that your own awareness, your own mind is the guru. And how is it the guru? It's your own mindfulness, your heedfulness. That mind is the guru.
Rupasa Chamanga, but more children, Singapore, Mumbai, Thomas Hajer, song, Jawing at the Tati song, 3, and you think of your lot to the Washington, Jarring comes on my top by your Mary. Tatanga solo, she doesn't dodge get her thought of the Jeremy. Majar, the Chili get her thought of the Jarring comes on my tablet, got I should say my warrior, my day. Remove the goods on board it. Oh, the goods that were party lately, Jarring at Tatter, Chocate, Jarring at it. Come down more on your age, just the one on your age.
So this Manakaya here, going back, whatever appears before the boundless face of Rigpa is the Manakaya. So you should ask, when does this Manakaya come, and where is this Manakaya, and who is that Manakaya? So who is that Manakaya? Actually, it is explained in the Samantabhadra Prayer. So it is the unceasing clarity of intrinsic awareness, appearing unceasingly, unobstructedly. So in the Samantabhadra Prayer, it says that it is Samantabhadra is your own intrinsic awareness, and so that is the primordial Buddha. So it says, I'm the primordial Buddha, from a single essence. Even though there is a single essence, there arise the 5 wisdoms in the form of the 5 Buddha families and so forth. So then from this, the limitless various Buddhas in the various Pure Lands manifest. So but first from the single essence of awareness arise the 5 Buddha families, and there is not a single of these limitless Pure Lands that is not encompassed by the 5 Buddha families. For example, when anger arises, when anger is transformed into Vajra, then all the Vajra family deities manifest. Or from pure pride, the jewel family or Ratna family deities manifest. So the various limitless Pure Lands manifest from these 5 Buddha families, and the basis of their arising is Samantabhadra himself, or the intrinsic awareness. So this is in the Samantabhadra Prayer, and that's a prayer that all of you always recite on an ongoing basis.
Oh, there is a look at I heard that I'm not the top of the three. Depa, not Depa, the Rachupa is a Chupan Chop. Not Depa to Trisata, the top of the Depa. Home, she do by it. Not they do not send me home to home, you about that. Lucas on Mario, Hong Kong, Lucas, Tati, Pataga, Kanita, Samati, Hong Kong, Hong Lambi, Jokers. The Walker, Dodula, not any young was song with the town, Yami Jamatak, Rani Javit Horson. The Hong Maker, the Manchester, the Divan of Hogo, the boy. Hong Kong Karo by me, the Tata of your Namto of the Hong Jersey. They did Karobati, later than Hong Tamje, Tao Lukang, they did Hong Papa Tamji Hong, there is nothing to Tamji Hong Kong. There is a boy, Honor, Daniel in a home Bible. So that's a home chart. Home the sugar, that's it. Shade, that Karo manager, Karobati. Jikti come to Jikti come with the Juang Nade. Nang Nimonga the car, Nimonga the good, Ranga Giri, say Juanga the young Arabi Chade. This is not easy to be Moniva. Kado with the home guard, you've been Kado to get a Toto Kata, you said the daughter of the Yadawa on the way. So that's it that I very. Nola McBarre, Rakutani, Hong Kong, lately Hong Kong, the Sheng Nasi, Tamji, Nam Chitamji, Tong Hong Ju. The Holy Judge got it. The one of Marapa, Jumata Chadi, 풍부 더 시주 풍부다에 제가랑지 맞다봐 또 많이 차들이 때 우보는 지만지니 들이 되게 단 챙겨 담네 선 우보는 이 되는 지만 때 남좀 샘 스스로 열라 우보네 내 발에서 지만지 내가 남좀 샘고 될 신 차신이 단 저기인데 내가 드마다 반하는 남다 차요래 뭐 요하는 이다 독사 요래 뭐야 때도 제가 맞다봐 다나 그 까마삼지 고마를 장가셔도 그래 저 지에다 반적이 봤더니 다다다 대답을 차대 요리더니 망동저 때리저는 거래 나 동네 이제 가는 덕 내가 말이 똥바지 누지리 맞아봐서 하고는 이 배심 주고 영모 차도 그것도 뭐라는 system 직장 만tra 민도 용가를 찾아봐 있어 좀 잡으려고 사강 토르선을 좀 몇을 소적 봐도 요 말이 제랑 것들이 제대로 가는 타와당 포악하리는 당그 랑 생타디는 가디를 타디리 이렇게 지요 말이잖아 마타는 로아로 가디를 하고 다동인 쪽을 배대다가 차디요래 이제 잡으려고 사강도 시작해서 하려야 하는 요 말이 배대다가 다 하고서만 됐다 차디요래 다니어서 집에 가서 도도 가라시 도는 나가는 도 할게 어디다 대서 라고 파타타지 다저도 하는 건데 되지 나 랍상 루게스 뭐 참아고 참아 로그라기 대서지 하는 거 집에 와서 기시 버려
Then we come to page 14, the mantra recitation then. So, for the mantra recitation, so this mantra recitation is just the utterance of hung, hung, hung coming in groups of 3. And also, the mantra recitation is like also an offering. The mantra becomes an offering to the deities. And so it is the fierce utterance of Hong. So first it starts with, by uttering Hong, 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 everything inside and outside of my body becomes completely filled with Hong syllables. So you, the pulse that goes through the veins of your body, the channels of your body are filled with Hong. And the Hong reverberates throughout your entire body naturally. And Jigden Sumgen also mentioned many of the qualities of the Vajra body, and that is related to that, the Hong pervading the entire body, the sound of the Hong. So you might be familiar with that if you practice the channels, winds, and drops. And so there he said that you should visualize, see your own body as the mandala of the Buddhas, the victorious ones. So in brief, here you should think first that all thoughts have become Hong. Everything has transformed into Hong. And your entire body is filled with Hong completely. And then imagine that from each of your pores, so that your body can no longer contain the Hongs, and they leak from your pores, and then everything that appears and exists in the universe, everything becomes filled with Hong. Everything becomes Hong. And so then, as they cannot fit within my body, they begin to stream out and fill the entire billion-fold universe with Hong syllables. And then from the utterance of 3, the Hong syllables transform into limitless dakinis. So then once you visualize that everything, inner and outer, has become filled with Hong, then, and that has the nature of Dharmakaya, then you let out Shri syllable, and then think that with that utterance, all these Hung syllables then transform into dakinis. So then the entire universe, consisting of the 5 elements, becomes the dakinis. And the inner mind, the 5 afflictive emotions, become the 5 male Buddhas. And so that's actually the true nature of the universe. It is actually the dakinis. The 5 elements are the 5 dakinis. And so then think that all the trees and the environment and everything that appears and exists becomes just that. And so that's the main visualization. So first you're filled with Hung, then everything becomes Hung, the inner and the outer, the entire environment, and then with 3, everything turns into the dakinis, the entire, everything surrounding you. And so then, with regard to your own body filled with Hung, what that actually represents, now, what does this really represent? So the Hung represents emptiness. And your entire physical aggregate being filled with Hung is a sign that your aggregates are empty. Your aggregates are only a heap of atomic particles and therefore ultimately impermanent because it is compounded. And it is just that we cling to its true concrete existence. And this is what binds us, ties us to samsara. It is this attachment and belief in the true existence of this body. And then the thoughts that come along with that, thinking that I'm real, that's real, and whatever I perceive, all these outer objects in the world, this is how it is, it's real. And so this is how we are tied to samsara, to this world. And then through this attachment, then the world will continue to manifest in its illusory form. And actually, it lacks any true existence whatsoever. It is just that we perceive it that way, but it doesn't exist the way we perceive it. Actually, it does not really exist. For example, when we think about this planet, each and every day, there are limitless such stars and planets who are destroyed and again come into existence endlessly. But all this appearance lacks any true existence. And nothing transcends your own projections. And whatever appears is impermanent, compounded, and therefore empty. So when you realize that nothing really possesses the substance that I ascribe to it, then actually your mind becomes very light. In the Samantabhadra Prayer, it says, even though the 3 realms were to be destroyed, there is no fear. There is no attachment to the 5 desirables of the senses. Then even if the world would come to an end, there would be no fear, because there is future lives. There is this life and future lives, even if you leave behind this life, even if one person dies. And so either you become liberated or not. And if the mind becomes liberated, then whether the world comes to an end or not, the mind will be liberated. There is no more birth and death. And if the mind is not liberated, then whether or not the world comes to an end, it will still go on, and you will continue to take birth, and you will continue to experience suffering. So therefore, if you understand that your existence does not really rely on the existence of this world at all, then even if the world would come to an end, would be completely destroyed, you wouldn't be so shocked by that. So that is how it would be if you understand the ultimate view. And so then it says, through the Dakinis roars of Hung, all the outer and inner and secret Sugatas and Bodhisattvas, sentient beings, the thickest and forest, the gods, demons, and harm-doers of the phenomenal world, and the obstacles to life force all transform into Dakinis roaring with the sound of Hung. And then a Hung, red like coral, appears in my throat. By exclaiming Hung fiercely, all the Dakinis begin to dance in a wild frenzy, causing the billionfold universe and Mount Meru to tremble and shake. Thus, it all is brought under my power. So And the essence of this visualization in brief is that you understand that your the pulse going through your veins, through your heartbeat, is all Hong. Your body is pervaded by the reverberation of the Hong. And so then similarly also all the microorganisms, the life forms in your body, the hundreds and thousands of these, also have the nature of wind, and they also therefore transform into Hong. So this is the most important part to this visualization.
주습의 사제 삼제 도도 홍을 들지 다터바데다데 마그 저도 몽셰를 가지시고요. 저 주습의 사제 삼제 뒤치를 공통함들 말하게 되다서 주습의 사제 삼제 고도 장미 바리스 홍금의 사제 맞게 가면서 제가 한 것들이 다 홍담들이 뒤치 도로 가는 홍을 지니들이 나도 계속 많이 요원을 들지요. 홍으로 매주고 서로 늘려나 차나 빼고 야 너마다 라서 홍으로 나도 어디서 내가 빼 매주고도 또도 남도 이제 바도 또서들이 담지 남도를 잡으면 남도를 못보다 제마시네 그때 홍도 짜치 보이마 그러다가 대회는 지난 사람 싸움에 대식도 상대 접촉서요 홍들이 다 대선 거예요 동방 망보지 홍을 되죠 홍도 돈이는데 that's all it is.
So then, back to the previous page on 14. So the outer, inner, and secret sugatas and the bodhisattvas. So the outer, inner, and secret sugatas. So now, what I'm explaining is just now my own take, understanding of this. I don't know how to explain things maybe from the perspective of the scriptures and vast learning. So perhaps what I'm saying is not quite correct. So you definitely should ask the Kempos who are here. But so from how I see it regarding these outer, inner, and secret sugatas, so the outer sugata is a Buddha. So the outer sugata, there are many different Buddhas that appear on the outer level. And there are many discussions on what really is a Buddha and who really is an emanation of a Buddha and so on. But so my take on that is that to me, anyone really in this world, anyone who not necessarily appears as one, but who engages in activities that benefit sentient beings and that in activities that uphold the teachings and preserve the teachings and increase the teachings, to me are really the outer Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas, and the Sugatas or Bodhisattvas. So then what are the inner Buddhas? So here there is also much discussion about it, and to me really it actually makes no difference. And a real, talking about a Buddha or even a Buddhist, it actually makes no difference whether one is an actual Buddhist on the outer level. So it doesn't really depend on their religion or the ethnic group and so on that one belongs to, but really anyone who has a mind that wants to benefit sentient beings and then who engages in activities that benefit sentient beings regardless of one's outer appearance is really a Buddha or Buddhist on the inner level. And there are therefore many, not only within Buddhism. So we speak about that, there's this view that Buddhism, being Buddhist or not being Buddhist, and some people are afraid of Buddhists, and some Buddhists are afraid of others, and they say, oh, they are dirtikas. But actually, all beings possess Buddha nature, and really what we call Buddhist or not Buddhist, now sometimes it's an outer expression, how it appears on the outer level. For example, we call somebody who has taken the refuge vow a Buddhist. But then within that, so Buddhist actually, by the way, literally means in Tibetan inner, being inward, so referring to the inner mind. And so therefore, what a real Buddhist is one who tames their own inner mind. So we tame self-grasping and we cultivate bodhicitta. And so such a person who does that is an actual Buddhist on the real inner level and not necessarily on the external level. So anyone actually therefore has that. Anyone really is a Buddhist because everyone possesses love and compassion to some extent. For example, even an animal. Animals also look after one another. They also possess love and compassion to whatever extent. And then the Buddhas also appear in the 6 realms of samsara. So that's the inner Buddhist or Buddha, and all sentient beings really are that on an inner level. And so then what's a secret Sugata, or a kind of a Buddhist on a secret level, it is whoever has realized the nature of their mind. So the Buddha appears in whichever way necessary to tame sentient beings. And sometimes, for example, we speak about eating meat, and actually from one perspective it could also be the case that the one who eats the meat and also the one who which is eaten, the meat that's eaten, both are actually emanations and Manakayas of the Buddha. So and then the meeting is like the kind of the meeting of the earth and the sky, and or the, kind of the 5 Dhyani Buddhas coming together, and benefit can be brought about. So it depends on one's state of mind. But anything that exists really is an emanation of the Buddha, and so anyone that has a pure intention and wishes to benefit sentient beings naturally is an emanation of a Buddha. And then temporarily, whatever it is that causes harm and suffering are what we call temporary, like a demon. So these are basically our self-grasping and the afflictive emotions. And so again, Jigten Sumgön had said that whatever is done in the field of knowable things is done by Buddha. And that also implies that even a small life form is a Buddha in the sense that they have the quality of wisdom and compassion, and therefore, to whatever extent they are able to benefit others around them, and still must experience suffering as a result of whatever karma they have accumulated. And so the antidote to that is to tame one's own mind. And so then here it says, it mentions these obstacles, so the gods and demons and harm doers and so on the various obstacles to life force. So often we say, oh, this is a demon or this is a god. Actually, there are no real inherent demon and gods, because all beings possess Buddha nature. There is no demon and god that exists to begin with. So there is no being that is always a demon and has always been one, and there is no being who has always been what we kind of call a divine, kind of a god, a special being. It's everyone has the same nature, which is Buddha nature, and it's all pervasive. Anyone who has a mind has the Buddha within them, and only temporarily, due to various karmas, they appear as what we then call these demonic beings. But that's just a temporary appearance, and temporarily they cause harm, and temporarily some gods worldly gods come to bring benefit. But ultimately, they do not actually inherently exist at all. And so then it mentions here those thickets and forests, so everything becomes hung. So in an instant, think that everything becomes pervaded by hung, and just naturally, that is the nature of everything. So, for example, when you think hung on the ultimate level is also related to this Nirmanakaya or Buddha emanation. For example, a tree, for example, is an emanation of a Buddha too, because a tree becomes a shelter for so many countless beings. For example, it provides them a place to stay, and it provides them with food, and it becomes a shelter for the heat of the summer and the shelter for the freezing cold of the winter and so on. So that really is an emanation and a Nirmanakaya form of a Buddha, because it brings great benefit to many sentient beings. So when you understand that, one who understands that will therefore see that everything that appears and exists is an infinite field of purity, then there is no more thought of this is bad. So all of these states of mind where we think that anything at all in this world is negative, is bad, these thoughts will no longer arise within the mind. And when these thoughts have become exhausted completely, to such a person, everything that appears and exists appears as this infinite field of purity. And appearing as such, that person will then naturally see everything as good. Everything is good. Everything is pure. And that which is pure is also empty on an ultimate level. And so therefore, the Hung then ultimately becomes emptiness. It represents emptiness. And also there is this compendium of 100,000 samayas, and all of these samayas actually are subsumed or summarized within the Hung. And the Hung itself is empty in essence. It represents the nature that can neither be said to be existing nor can it said to be non-existing. It transcends all limitations. The Hung syllable is the life force heart of all the Buddhas of the 3 times. And so for myself, and perhaps that is kind of a blind faith view, but for example, if you would ask, how can you practice all the Buddhas of the 3 times simultaneously, then to that I would say, then you meditate on the syllable Hung. If you meditate on the syllable Hung, you are practicing all the Buddhas of the 3 times simultaneously. Because that the Hung represents the empty nature and the life force of all the Buddhas. And also when you meditate on the Hung, there is no other thought within your mind whatsoever. In an instant, when you meditate on the Hung, everything disappears. All thoughts disappear. All grasping at this my body and so on, all disappears. And for example, even if you are sick, you might heal your pain through meditating on the Hung. At least for the time being, temporarily, when you meditate on the Hung, for that time being, there will be no thoughts within your mind. And it's really the clinging to our thoughts that cause all of our sickness and all of our problems. Everything is the creation of our thoughts. It is because we believe in the true existence of our own thoughts. And so therefore, the meditation on the Hung is truly very, very precious and very important. So actually, a lot of deep meaning is included just within the Hung syllable. But in brief, the Hung represents emptiness, and ultimately, emptiness also purity, and ultimately, purity becomes emptiness. So the ultimate nature of the Hung, therefore, is emptiness.
Hung, 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 Hung. Oh, man.
We will take a break for 30 minutes and meet you back here at 11 a.m. Arizona time, MST, GMT -7. Thank you very much. See you in a half an hour.